2024. I'd like to call this planning board meeting to order. And I'd like to ask Dan if he would lead everyone in the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you and welcome everyone. We have a fairly short agenda tonight, so hoping that we can keep it brief, but we'll do the business that we need to do. So I believe that we do have a quorum, and I'd like to get the board members, if they would, to invite them to introduce themselves, starting with Howard.
Howard Levitan, Oars Island.
Thank you.
Whitney Snelling, Oars Island.
Christine Donovan Hall, Oars Island.
Lori Rice, Great Island.
Amy Heibel, Harpswell.
Dan Hobeck, Oars Island.
I'm Mark Ironman, the town planner, and I apologize for finishing my supper, but I just came downstairs.
Well, next time I'll bring wine.
Thank you.
Okay, we do not have any old business for tonight, but we do have some new business. The first item on the agenda is a dock application on behalf of John Libby Construction by Redfish Associates. It's consideration of an application for a new community wharf for the Driftwood Tide subdivision, which we approved, a month ago, something like that, weeks ago. So I would like to hear from Redfish, or anybody, if you have something that you'd like to present, we'd like to give you this opportunity to do that. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for seeing us tonight. So, as you're aware, this is a fairly simple, straightforward dock pinned on ledge. It's proposed to be 6 by 50 feet with a 12 by 20 float and a 3 by 40 ramp. Float storage will be in the upland in the off-season, and it will serve the new development that John's putting in.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chairman.
Yes.
Point of order. You need to designate one of the two alternates to be a voting member.
That is true. I did think about that, and then I forgot. Howard, would you be our voting member tonight? Thank you very much. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So now I'd like to, if you would just stay up there for a little bit, if any of the board members have any questions that they'd like to ask, clarifications.
Madam Chair.
And then, okay.
I have two pieces of communication
Okay.
that have arrived
Oh.
very recently. And these relate to the application, and I only have one copy of them, so I'm going to read them to you, if that's all right.
God, this reminds me of my old Richmond Planning Board days. No one had a copy of the zoning ordinance.
One is from John Libby, says, I am writing regarding the community dock of Driftwood Tide subdivision, da-da-da-da-da. I am requesting a waiver for the parking area standard 1523.5 due to the layout of the subdivision and the placement of the pedestrian easement access way. There is no need for parking spaces. I mentioned that in the draft motion. And the second is an email indicating that they have filed the covenants for the subdivision, which include provisions for the ownership and maintenance of the community dock. And those were filed today, and we will get a copy of those. So those two issues that are ticked in my materials for you have been addressed as we go forward.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board? And I will invite members of the public that have questions or concerns to speak after the board has spoken. So I won't ignore you if you're here for that. Courtney?
Is this an appropriate time to talk about the easement and the vegetation and the trees, or do I need to wait for that?
Nope, I think that's
I'd say
appropriate.
go.
Order, okay, so, there is an easement to get to the Donald, I should look at you, sorry.
That's all right.
I know you know.
As far as the easements and vegetation concerns, John may be the one to best answer those questions. So I'll turn the microphone over to him. If you have anything pertinent for me, I'll step back up.
Okay, well, that's why I wasn't sure, I knew you had to get to the dock. So, we just want to make sure that the vegetation that is there remains
So-
unspoiled, and those two nice trees?
Yeah, there was 2 trees. We met out there with Tim and Norm the other day, and we can fit the pier between those 2. We'll have to do some limbing, I think, on like a cedar, because the branches are pretty wide there. But we should be able to attach it right between the 2 without cutting them. We'll have to cut a few pines that lead to it, because you can't get to it, because it's like all thick little pines there. But other than that, we can leave those 2 big trees with some limbing.
Okay, we just wanted to make sure that the vegetation was not interrupted.
No, just enough to get access to it, but the 2 trees in question are gonna be able to stay. And as far as the pedestrian easement, down that side, I talked to the neighbor, and we did work something out, and we're gonna take care of that, when the time allows this spring. Okay.
Anyone else? I do have a question about the parking. What I'm
Again. That may be John. John may want to stay up here just for a minute.
just a question about the parking.
Yep.
And I was not able to make the site walk.
Okay.
But my question is, I guess what one assumes is that because those who will be using the community dock will have a parking space at their home.
Right.
That they'll be driving their boats or their kayaks or whatever it is that they're using the dock for in, and then dropping off, and then,
I don't believe any boats will be launched there. They'll be put in somewhere else, and then
and then brought
and then if
over.
somebody gets a mooring or whatever they want to do on their own, they can leave a boat out in the water, but it definitely will not be, it could be kayaks they could bring down. But other than that, there's very limited access through that. It's more of a pedestrian easement. There isn't going to be a boat launch or anything like that.
Okay.
And Amy, if you remember the plan of the subdivision, there are 2 lots on the water. One of them has the easement for the community dock, and the adjacent one, I think the applicant previously represented during the subdivision discussion that they didn't expect that the owner of that lot would come all the way back down the road to where the pedestrian easement is, go across, then go back in. So there's really no need for parking. And then the 3rd lot, the pedestrian easement essentially starts at the 3rd lot, if I remember correctly.
It's not far from it, yeah.
Yeah, and so there's, providing a parking space at the beginning of the pedestrian easement wouldn't serve any purpose because their house is going to be across the street from the parking space.
Makes sense.
That answered my question.
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay. Dan?
Now, do I recall correctly that, from the last meeting, that you said that the materials are gonna come from the water rather than down from the road?
All construction for the dock itself will be done from the water by barge.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from the public? Okay, hearing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's move on to our business. So we've already heard that the dock is going to be 6 feet wide by 50 feet long. We know its dimensions. The dock has to comply with certain standards of the shoreline zoning ordinance. And I will just go through those quickly. The first one is width. Before I do that, do I really need to read off that it's 15.23.1?
No, I mean,
do that?
I think if you wanted to be Al, you could simply say that, the planner's findings are
Thank you.
that it meets the requirements, particularly based upon the additional submissions tonight, and go to the conclusions. I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
That all of the findings
Okay.
have now been met.
Okay, that's what I will do.
How about a motion to that effect?
A motion to the effect.
Yeah.
Make your motion.
Madam Chairman. I
This is
move
our
that-
first meeting with me as acting chair, so that's
Yeah.
why if it looks like we don't really know what we're doing, that's because I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll figure it out.
You'll,
It's just procedural stuff.
Yeah.
Just procedural. I move that that the planning board adopt the findings as presented by the town planner and incorporate those findings into the adoption.
Would you be willing to specify the date and the item number on those findings? So we just make sure we're all,
Yes, item number 24-0401, submitted by the planner on April 10, 2024.
thank you. Any second? We have a second. All right, all those in favor? All right, thank you. I'll just read the conclusions then. And before I do that, just so everybody knows, the DEP and Army Corps approvals are on file. So,
And number 5 has now been addressed because they have recorded the covenants.
and do you have a record of that?
No, I have their assurance that they were recorded, and we will receive the recorded evidence of the recorded document.
But that still is one of our.
It's still outstanding, though.
It's still a requirement that.
Yeah,
that be
okay, that's
recorded.
fine.
Okay.
Okay, conclusions. So based on the vote on the findings, I move that the planning board approves the application of John Libby Construction to install a community dock to serve the Driftwood Tide subdivision in accordance with the recorded subdivision plan on Lot 34 on tax map 42, subject to the following conditions of approval. First, this approval is not final until such time as the notice of decision has been signed by the chair of the planning board. Second, this approval is based on the application, including the drawings of the proposed dock prepared by Redfish and Associates, Inc., and on all submissions and information provided by the applicant at final approval, whether referenced in any findings or conditions of approval. 3, this approval is dependent upon and limited to the proposal and plans contained in the application and supporting documents submitted and affirmed to by the applicant. Any variation from the plan, proposals, and supporting documents except de minimis changes as determined by the town planner that don't affect approval standards is subject to the review and approval of the planning board prior to implementation. 4, the applicants shall comply with all state and federal rules and regulations that apply to the application. As I said, they have done that. 5, prior to the issuance of a building permit for construction of a home on any lot in the subdivision, the covenants and association bylaws shall be recorded in the Cumberland County Registry of Deeds and evidence of the recording provided to the Codes Enforcement Office. And 6, the 2 large trees near the top of the bank in or adjacent to the dock easement shall be protected during the installation of the dock and construction of the access path and may not be removed without permission from the town planner and code enforcement officer with advice from a professional forester. I have a motion made. Anyone want to second that motion? Thank you, Howard. All those in favor? Thank you. Unanimous. All right, thank you very much.
That one's done. On to the next one.
All right. Moving, right along.
I'll get it in later. Sometimes it's so hard to do that.
I know.
All right. This is our second
not at the
item of
sidewalk,
business.
so-
We all on the same page?
I was not. I tried to get there and I got
What's that?
there. and-
Do you need any of my paperwork or anything?
No,
No.
I was just going over the sidewalk, but I missed it. I got there, but everybody was gone by the time I got there.
Yeah, I was having this eye thing done, so I missed it too. So,
You did?
I saw you getting home.
I was like, darn it.
so, for those of us who weren't there, please, those of you who were, fill us in.
Yeah.
Let's hear from the
Yeah.
Shall we hear from the applicant?
Let's, we're not, I got it. So this next item is Alex and Joan Jordan. They are the owners of map 64, lot 4, 18 Rocky Hill Lane. The board is reviewing this application for consideration of its jurisdiction for the review of a non-conforming structure, to reconstruct a non-conforming structure. Let's see, before we begin, I'd like to hear from the owner's rep and see if he has anything that he'd like to share with us.
How you doing? My name's Alex Jordan. This is my wife, Joan. We're the ones that are planning on taking down the old house and putting the new one up. And I don't know if you folks have any questions for me, or it's my first planning board meeting, so bear with me.
That's all right, we're all on the starting page here. So would you just explain your project to us a little bit and tell us what you plan to do?
Yep, basically, the dwelling that's there right now is a two-story structure. The height from the lowest part of the dirt in the front to the peak of the roof is 22 and a half feet. What we're planning on doing is turning a four-bedroom into a two-bedroom on a slab, keeping the same height, so the new structure will be 18 and a half feet from the slab up, which will be the same exact height as the structure that's already there. So it'll be a two-bedroom, single bath, with a little less than the 30% expansion going towards the east. And in our plan, we did try to make it so we could move it 3 more feet away from the shorefront to make it 3 more feet compliant.
Great, okay. Thank you very much. What I would like to do is hear from the board next, and then we can hear from abutters. I ask that because it's possible that the board's questions may help answer some of the abutters' questions, but let's hear from the board first with questions about this. Howard?
The part of the house that is closest to the water, I don't know whether you call that the front or
I would
the side that's near where the dock used to be and the new dock will be at some point,
Yep,
is very close to the water.
yep.
Did the water get up to the house during those storms?
Not that I know of.
So there is no water damage to the,
No. In fact, we did have it resurveyed, and I think it was in a A2 zone. I don't remember the exact, but we did have a surveyor come for the new floodplain and stuff.
yeah,
So it was, I think it's the A2 zone, or I'm not sure what the numbers are. Yeah, it wasn't in the flood zone.
that would be, I don't know, I haven't looked at the maps, but
Yeah.
it's very close to the water.
Yeah. The only problem is, by trying to make it more compliant, moving it 3 feet would be easier to go to the east because the septic system and the pump station are right behind the house. So unless we put the house on top of the pump station, it's a pretty restricted area there.
So for those of you who weren't on the sidewalk, what he's talking about is basically squaring off one side of the house by filling in about 3 feet,
Yeah,
which moves some of the living area over away from the water on the, it's on a sort of a peninsula. Water is on 2 sides, so it's
So very limited.
very limited space.
very, very
And
limited.
any further, if we ask them to move it any further, it would impinge on access to the garage. Although Are you using the garage level as a garage for cars?
We're going to park in there, yeah.
Park in there.
And when I moved it over the 3 feet, it's actually, I don't know if you took a look, but it's, I mean, you're going to have to kind of swing it right next to the house. I mean, it's, moving it to 3 feet is probably about the absolute most you could do.
I think that that's true from what we saw.
Yeah, I just have a question, as I went through the documents, and it used to be an overboard discharge, correct, system? But now it has a septic system. Is this the same leach field area, the same leach fields? Certainly no other place you could put a leach field.
No, and I think that was provided by the state. I think, looking in the documentation, the state actually provided the leach field for those folks. And it's a 4-bedroom leach field, so it's a sizable leach field.
I think they gave you a variance just because,
Yeah, nothing else. You couldn't do anything else. I think she had her garden on top of the leach field.
but
Probably grew some good
fine
vegetables.
stuff does grow well there.
I'm sure it does.
But apparently, is the septic system isn't necessarily being replaced? I know there's something.
Oh, no.
A cement container that has to be certified as a leak-proof by a local plumber, correct?
I think we just had it plumbed and,
Looking this up,
pumped and
am I?
inspected by R.A. Weber did all that. We just
Okay.
had all that done. Also, by moving the house closer to that driveway, the 3 feet, the elevation of the slope of the driveway goes up, so the house is gonna go into that. And that's why we kind of requested, it would be nice if we could raise the slab 12 inches. That way that rainwater that comes down that driveway won't go into the new front door.
I think that's a good idea.
That would be,
anyway.
Yeah, because right now, I don't know if you've seen it, Howard, but right now, where you step in is pretty much stepping into the house.
It's a level, yeah.
And the 12 inches would not raise it a whole bunch, but enough where it'd be a lot nicer so that the rainwater doesn't come into the front door, you know?
yeah.
Anybody
But-
else have any questions?
Yeah, I just have one other question. So it was billed as a 2-story eventually, but you're doing it as a 1-story?
Yeah, it's going to have the same height with a peaked roof. And up in one section of the peaked roof is going to be a loft area. And where the other roof goes off, that's going to be our utility room so that we can utilize the downstairs as much as possible without having our utility room downstairs. Because, I don't know if you've seen the plans, but the bedrooms aren't very big, and to make 2 decent-sized bedrooms and a bathroom, I mean, the whole thing is pretty squeaky tight, you know?
Right, well, it had said it was a 2-story, but you were making a 1-story, so I was just trying to figure that out.
Yeah, it's going to
Yeah.
be a 1-story with the loft. There's not going to be any bedrooms or anything upstairs.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome, thank you.
I don't have anything.
No?
I wasn't there, I would like to have
Okay.
seen it, so. would
I
help.
wasn't there.
No questions?
No, I know what you were talking about, the water coming down the driveway there and where it is right now. It just really goes into the foundation. What kind of thoughts do you have on either on-site water retention or to keep from what's coming down the driveway from now going directly into the water?
Well, it's basically be almost the same thing that's there now. I mean, if you walked it, you see there's not much room for
There's not-
anything.
No, no.
My only question is, were you here for the last storm?
I wasn't here at the time of any of the storms.
Okay.
But if your question has to do with how far the water came up?
Yeah.
I don't know, the neighbors can probably speak to that as well, but when we were out there walking, we could see the debris line from the highest storm, and it wasn't up to the building.
Yeah, it's still kind of down towards
Yep.
the rocks almost.
Okay.
And we did have it surveyed for the new FEMA flood thing, and my wife just corrected me, it is an A2.
It is-
Flood area where the house
It
is.
is really elevated from the.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's good. That's
That's good, because I'm looking at where your leach field is and your dug well. Are you still going to be using that same well?
There is a drilled well. They did have a drilled well put in right next to the garage. And apparently, once they drilled that, it got breached by salt water.
Yeah.
But what I'm planning on doing, so I don't have the dug well, which is right, obviously pretty close to the
Yeah.
leach field, I want to try and do some water testing on that drilled well and maybe do a reverse osmosis system or something so I can utilize the artesian well and then maybe just use the dug well to water plants or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
Because I really don't want to
$3,000.
take a shower from the well that's next to the leach field.
Right, right, right. And what I was thinking was just also having the leach field and the well inundated during a storm. And boy, did we ever see that happen during the last storm. But I wasn't on the sidewalk, so I don't know, but I trust that you're high enough up and
Yeah,
it'll be.
I'll tell you right now, where the leach field is probably a good 3 or 4 feet higher than the actual house. It's on the side of the garage, and the elevation of the garage floor compared to the floor of the house is at least probably 3 feet, maybe, if not a little bit more.
Okay.
So that's where the leach field is, so if the water's gonna come up that high, then most of the island will probably be covered.
That day may come, but, no.
Yeah,
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
all right, thank you.
Okay, so the planning board is on the agenda as 2 separate possible actions.
Wait,
Oh, I'm sorry.
you should hear from the
Oh, the planner.
abutter.
The butter, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
Anyone from the public that would like to speak to this?
Oh, okay,
We're all set?
okay.
Mark, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
No, I mean, you got my draft motion. This is really, there's not a lot of alternatives. I think Codes has been working with the applicant, and, you know, my suggestion is that you simply remand it to Codes and
Right.
to work out where the actual footprint of the building will be.
Okay, thank you, Mark. All right, so that's,
So, Madam Chair, I'd
Yes.
just like to make that motion, having been there and
Thank you.
seen what is going on. I think we ought to, I would like to move that we vote to decline to take jurisdiction over the application in accordance with Section 10.3.2.4 and remand this to the Code Enforcement Office for processing.
Second? Second. All right, all in favor? Thank you very much. Wow, this was probably the shortest planning board meeting I think we have.
Yeah.
I know. Okay, not yet. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
You
Yes,
work
thank
directly
you,
with
and-
Codes.
12-inch raise on the elevation is fine, that's all
Well, the
good.
code,
I think you
deal
need
with
to
codes.
deal with Margaret and Tim for that.
Yeah,
yeah.
all right, perfect.
Good luck, and,
Yeah.
Welcome to Harpswell.
yeah, welcome, have a happy life.
We'll see you next month, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah, the wharf, we
Okay.
can talk about.
all right, thank you.
Excellent, thank you very much, folks.
All right, have a good evening.
You too.
Now, moving along to item 4 on the agenda,
Didn't have a chance to read those.
consideration of the minutes from the February meeting.
Read the minutes.
I'll wait just a
Margaret sent
second.
them, and I didn't-
Amy says they had some typos, but I looked at them too.
I
Okay,
didn't have a
I'm,
chance today.
I know everyone is talking business here. So, did anyone get a chance, other than myself, to look at the meetings?
I'm so
I
sorry.
thought they were fine.
I did not. I
Yeah.
was
Some
preparing
typos,
for my other
Yeah,
meeting.
like you said, there were a
Minor
couple of
typos.
typos,
There were a
but that
couple
was
of
it.
typos, but that's it.
But
I'm happy to go along with.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Okay,
substantively, they were fine. Yeah.
I'm so sorry, Margaret. I just didn't have a
Okay.
chance to.
I think,
okay.
Sorry to get them to you so late. Monday was a holiday and Tuesday we were at a training and today was crazy, so.
Okay.
no, that's
Well, I'm
fine.
sorry, I didn't have a chance to read them.
Not a
So
problem.
They
I,
look good.
they look good. I will make a motion that the board accept the minutes from February 21st and March 6th, 2024. Did we look at the March, those are the only 2 that I looked at, I think.
I didn't see the March 20th.
I didn't see the March 20th.
Oh, maybe I did, yes.
Well, one set was as one.
Oh, okay.
there, I don't know.
Right.
I
The
looked at it,
February meeting was separated.
Excuse me, could you take that out to the side there? Thank you.
Bye, guys. The February meeting had been split into 2 meetings, so the minutes are all as one,
Right.
so.
thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
I would
Yep.
like to make a motion that we accept the February 21st and March 6, 2024 minutes and the March 2024 meeting minutes.
I haven't read them, so I don't
Okay.
feel good
Second.
seconding.
Second.
I'll
Okay.
vote for them, though.
All in favor? Okay, we have a majority. Thank you.
Good.
The reason I was confused was that the February 21st and March 6th meeting
Are together.
were in the same group.
I see that.
They were just,
Don't you remember we had a second
Part
meeting?
1 and Part 2 of the
Remember
same
that.
meeting.
Yeah.
okay. Okay, do we have any update from the planner?
Just a couple of things. One is to remind you that you are meeting next Wednesday night at 6:30 at the Harpswell Community School for a series of public hearings on ordinance amendments, the major one being consideration of the new floodplain maps from FEMA and a replacement floodplain management ordinance. There also is on there the 2 ordinance amendments that we looked at briefly a month ago about updating the requirements for ADUs and also allowing splits of a single-family house. What else? We got one other one. There may be, and there may be a right to fish ordinance proposal. That's still going around in circles. The meeting has been noticed that there will be an open house at 5:30, at which staff will be available with the floodplain maps, so that if anybody wants to come early and look at them or discuss with Margaret how the revised maps impact them, that will be there, and then the public hearings will start at 6:30. The only public hearing that needs to be completed is the one relating to the floodplain management materials, since the town has to take action on those by June 20th. The other ones are there. I would say that at this point, a special town meeting has not been scheduled. There was discussion about trying to incorporate all of this with the update of the comprehensive plan. It appears that the comprehensive plan update probably will not be ready to go to town meeting. And I think there will be a special town meeting probably on Saturday, I believe it's June 8th, the second Saturday, to consider the floodplain and any other ordinance things. There may also be a couple of other items that are floating around that could be ready that don't involve the planning board.
They're not going to bring the comp plan on June 8th, or you don't know.
No, I think the chair of the comp plan task force has said that the task force will not be ready to bring something
Okay.
to town meeting.
So for next week, the only votes you want from the planning board are in relation to the FEMA materials.
And the other items that are subject to public hearing.
Are you going to provide us with votes and all of that?
Oh, yeah, yep, and you already have most of those, and
Most of
I'll
those.
resend them. And actually, on all of those, I don't want to diminish the role of the planning board, but in terms of the ordinance amendments,
Yeah, I get it.
which the floodplain things are, your role is to hold the public hearing and then pass them on to the select board, for the select board to decide whether they want to put them on a town meeting warrant.
Okay,
We still have to make a recommendation.
Right.
yeah,
vote.
yeah.
Right, you have to make a vote to send them to the
Right,
select board.
good.
Okay, so that's where?
It will be at the Harpswell Community School, the elementary school.
Okay.
And that's Wednesday, right?
That's next
Next
Wednesday,
Wednesday.
a week from today.
Okay,
The public hearing, or the meeting, will start at 6:30. You don't have to be there until then, but there will be this opportunity, starting at 5:30, for the public, if they want to come and look at the maps and see how their property is impacted.
right.
The town has already done that. Margaret did office hours for a number of days where people could come in and view the maps and what have you. But I think the sense was that now that we're down to the, this is it, if you have questions. Now, I am going to say something. And this is an important message, in that this is either say yes to the maps and the ordinance, and the town is able to stay in the federal flood insurance
Right.
program.
Yeah.
And property owners that have flood insurance continue to get flood insurance. If the town does not adopt the maps and the ordinance by June 20th or 21st, we are suspended from the program, and people who have the federal flood insurance, their policies are immediately terminated.
Right,
Yeah.
and the town.
What's
not-
worse is that their mortgages are then in default.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
It's a federally insured mortgage
Right,
that has to require
correct,
flood insurance if they're
Yeah.
in a floodplain.
Yeah.
And that would be a default under the mortgages.
correct.
correct.
Yeah.
And,
So,
and the
we don't have a-
reality
we don't have
is
a
the
choice.
town is not like some communities, like if you go to Wells or Old Orchard Beach, where there are hundreds or thousands of flood insurance policies outstanding, but there are a significant number of property owners who would be impacted by a decision not to adopt the maps and the
Yeah,
ordinance.
which would be a form of negligence on the part of the town.
So, this is where calling it a public hearing, to me, is kind of a
Putting lipstick on the pig?
misnomer. Well, it's a misnomer, in the sense that, yes, people can come and say, I don't like it, but there's nothing that we can do about
Yeah,
it, so.
yeah. So
it's-
I have one other question, and it's the comp plan, public meeting is next week as well.
There is a comprehensive plan meeting,
Yeah, I thought it was
informational meeting scheduled for Tuesday,
Yes, Tuesday.
the 23rd at, I believe it's 6.
I think it is.
Kellogg
At,
Church.
at Kellogg
Kellogg
Church.
Church, yeah.
And this is to replace the one that was snowed out. I've looked at the forecast, and they say we shouldn't have more than 6 inches of snow next week.
Hopefully, we're done with that.
So for those board members that couldn't attend the other one, I really encourage you to try to make one of these. It's really important just to hear and see and participate.
Well, the meeting that you had here, that the planning board had,
Yeah,
with Al, I thought was the most instructive of them
Yeah.
all. And that is available on Harpswell TV
that's right.
for the public to watch.
That is
And I think that's something they should watch.
Absolutely. Okay,
I have
planner,
materials for you guys. I should have brought it tonight, I realized, but the draft ordinance, amendments and the draft floodplain management ordinance.
Yeah, that would be great.
Pick it up in my office tomorrow.
So Margaret is telling us that she'll make copies of the floodplain things for us to pick up for the public hearing. Thank you.
Not the maps.
No. Maps, no.
They're available on our website,
Okay.
and they're hard to.
But the right to fish ordinance troubles me, and not that it troubles me, but that would be not politically correct. But if we don't have it, how can we have a public hearing on something we don't have?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I think that, Howard, the honest answer is that I think that item will be struck from the agenda.
Okay.
It was put on because there's a difference between the time we do the agenda and the notice requirement for the public hearing. There have been discussions back and forth as to what this whole thing is going to look like. By way of background, a private group submitted a proposal to the town to create a right to fish ordinance. We did a little tinkering with it to sort of organize it a little bit and clean up some of the language, but essentially put it forward pretty much as they had submitted it. With their acquiescence, we submitted it to the town's legal counsel, who said there are some problems with this. You can't say that the state nuisance law doesn't apply to commercial fishing, et cetera. And there now are some, I guess you would call it, possibly continuing discussion about how those interests could be accommodated in a way that are legally possible to go to a town meeting consideration. Probably won't happen. The likely date for the special town meeting would be June 8th. That would still allow that public hearing to be held at your May meeting if this is able to come together in the next week or so.
But that raises an interesting point. I have never heard of a private group in Harpswell putting forward a piece of town legislation, a zoning ordinance.
The ordinance actually provides for
It does
Yeah.
allow.
it, yeah. And actually, in this case, what happened is it says ordinance amendments can be initiated three ways. One, by the select board, two, by the planning board, three, by a petition of, I think it's
Okay.
25 voters.
Okay.
In this case, this came through the select board, through Kevin as sort of the go-between on it. So this has really been put forward through the select board to
Okay.
try and address this.
So that actually does make sense, because if a group of people, for example, felt the town was growing too fast and wanted to have a moratorium on growth, they could, if they could collect enough signatures, they could present a petition to the select board to have a moratorium on growth, or a moratorium on anything, on red fire
Well,
trucks.
no, I
or-
would say they could submit a petition for an ordinance amendment.
Saying no more growth?
No, I mean, if you wanted to say, okay, we think the lot sizes in the
Okay.
suburban residential district should be increased from 40,000
Okay.
to 60,000, or we think that in suburban residential, now we should allow I mean, the shoreland residential, we should now allow retail uses of less than 1,500 square feet. A group of people could put that petition forward. That ballot amendment would then come to the planning board. You would hold a public hearing on it. It would
Yep.
go to the select
Got it.
board. And
Okay.
if they thought it met the requirements, go to town meeting
Okay.
for a vote. My understanding, and Amy, you may be around in those days, that back in the 90s, there were regularly petitions to change the designation of individual lots in the shoreland zone. And if you go back and look at the town meeting record, there were votes to, at some town meetings to change 10 or 15 lots from one zone to another zone. And I think my understanding may be that legal counsel finally said that's suspicious that you're picking out one lot and it's might be illegal spot zoning to say Mary is in a residential district, but she can have a commercial use and
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
And
Thank
so-
you.
I didn't understand the burden of what this ordinance that's been put forth by the private group exactly, what are they looking for, or would you rather not comment? I listened to you
No,
talk, but I didn't get it.
I
Sorry.
think their
And here I was,
Request.
hoping we could get done early.
well,
Still
There-
pretty
2
early.
minutes.
their request included sort of 4 parts.
Oh, God.
One, a declaration that commercial fishing was preferred use. Second, that
Preferred use of-
the town would create and fund annually a program to provide information to property owners buying property in the CF1 and 2, or maybe CF2 district, about the fact that they were buying in an area, a lot within a zone where commercial fishing was a preferential activity.
So like Scuttlebutt, this is kind of like the document that tells people,
Yeah,
look where you're buying
Yeah.
and what's going on here
Right.
and be aware.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
You
and,
can
But
and-
there's- but
and then
there's-
there would,
Fine, fine.
Complain about it later.
But there's
And-
specific goals in there. One, to preserve access, and one, to preserve the wharfs and the docks.
not directly, not in the draft. It
Is this the
talks
nuisance
about
thing? Is this the one that has the nuisance?
Right,
You can't have,
right.
people can't be
The
complaining
third
that the
one
lobster.
was
pigeon or
to
whatever.
adopt definitions of commercial fishing, and currently, commercial fishing is allowed, but there's no definition of commercial fishing.
Interesting.
To, I guess there are 5 things, to amend the ordinance to allow commercial fishing as a home occupation in all zones, which it already is allowed in all zones.
As a
Yeah.
home, they're gonna specifically say home occupation? Home occupation?
Yes,
Under the other sections of the ordinance that talk about
And there's a
whether
track
it's
storage,
compatible?
which People don't.
well, understand that what the existing home occupation provisions say is that you can have a home occupation as an accessory to a residential use in all zones, subject to standards that are in the shoreline zoning ordinance.
But one of those is compatibility.
But if you read those standards, it says those standards don't apply to a home occupation that involves commercial fishing.
So it's catch 22.
That makes
So,
sense.
and then the last piece
Circular.
was this idea of saying that you couldn't use the state nuisance statute against commercial fishing.
Well, we don't have the power to do that.
Well, exactly. And so the town's legal counsel has said there are a number of issues with this proposal, and that you can't say, you know, a future town meeting has to spend money to do certain things, the nuisance provision, the issue that the proposal essentially says we should amend the ordinance to do what you already can do. So
We're gonna need to read it.
Yeah, we.
Okay, I just didn't I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you talk so long,
Well,
sorry,
but
I
that's
kept
the-
you all, but I
That's the
didn't.
point. We can't bring it to a public hearing
We don't know what is in there.
if it hasn't been finalized. And
Right.
one, and two, we do have the May planning board meeting to, if it gets finalized.
yeah, I can
That would
send
be
you.
kinda nice.
But if it hasn't been.
Mary Ann
even
Naif
approved
is
by the
asking you to
legal
go to the-
situation, what are we reading that's gonna be redrafted anyway?
Well, yeah, and I mean, I'll send you what the,
Okay,
NIFTA,
Nefsa?
but what I'm gonna send you is not what's gonna happen.
okay.
Subject to change.
All right,
there could be things we could put into the shoreline zoning ordinance, though, that would make it more comfortable, particularly the access aspects.
This is an
mean,
opportunity, this
this
may
is
be an
I mean-
opportunity to clarify a couple of other
The,
things, too.
it's not saying that they don't have points that are important for them, for the commercial fishing people, and it is a big industry in the town, and we could reflect that if they had specific issues as opposed to a general rights type thing, which,
so you're suggesting that it be considered as part of the shoreland zoning ordinance instead of
well,
as a
I thought
as a
at the comp
standalone?
plan, at the public hearing for the comp plan, it was pretty clear that we weren't, that they have issues that they would like to be addressed in the comp plan and in the town ordinances that result from the comp plan changes.
Right.
And I think that that's appropriate, because they do represent a lot of the industry in town.
And, yeah, and that has to start with the comp plan.
Has to start with the comp
Yeah.
plan.
Okay, I
All
move we adjourn.
All right.
Second.
Oh, sorry, anybody else have anything they want to say? All right, I move we
Yeah,
adjourn.
I have one other
Oh.
thing. And this is just, my understanding is that the select board will consider appointments and reappointments to all of the town committees and boards, including this board. If your term of office is up,
Yeah.
or you wish to argue for a change of your status,
Wish it were up.
It's not up yet.
no, there are some people whose terms are up.
Yeah, mine.
And I can, if you have questions about it, I can let you know.
Yeah.
Mine has to be renewed every year.
And you need to reapply.
Yep.
And if you want to be reappointed, lobby the appropriate members of the select board.
Okay, so we have it from the horse's mouth that it's fine to call and say, you need to appoint me.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good, excellent.
Or
So
or
make
to
those
say, at
calls.
least I'm interested in being reappointed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
How's that?
advocate for yourself. That's right. Good, all right.
And there's one vacancy for a full
Right.
member, and if either of the two associates wanted to bid on that opening, they should make people aware of that, and I think they have. And if you know anybody who you think they should consider for the vacant position as associate member, this is where you encourage them to submit their application and lobby for
So
it.
they'll be taking that up at their May meeting, the select?
No, actually, I think they're going to take it up at their meeting, I think it's the 28th
Fifth.
or 5th or whatever.
Oh, okay.
It's the next Thursday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's coming right
Thursday,
up.
25th.
Really quick, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right, I move that we adjourn. Second, anybody?
30.
Second?
Third,
All in favor?
fourth.
Thank